Humanity always knew the peace treaty was a sham admiral. Sarah Chen stood before the massive holographic display in the war room deep beneath Geneva. The blue glow cast shadows across her weathered face as she studied the galactic map. Red dots marked enemy positions throughout known space. Green dots showed human colonies. The red vastly outnumbered the green. 37 years, she muttered to herself. 37 years of this damn peace treaty. Colonel Marcus Webb approached from behind, his footsteps echoing in the underground chamber. Admiral, the Council of Species is demanding we attend their emergency session on Kepler Station. They claim we've been building military installations in violation of the Covenant of Stars. Sarah laughed bitterly. The Covenant of Stars. What a joke. The so-called peace treaty that ended the First Galactic War had been nothing more than a leash around humanity's neck. While the alien coalition pretended to embrace peace, they had spent decades consolidating their power and surrounding human space. "Tell the Council we'll be there," Sarah said, "but not in the way they expect." The truth was, humanity had never stopped preparing for war. The moment the ink dried on that treaty, every human leader knew it was temporary. The Zephyrians, Vortax, and their dozen allied species had simply needed time to recover from the shocking resistance humanity had shown during the first conflict. Sarah remembered those early days when Earth had been discovered by the galactic community. The aliens had expected humanity to fall in line like every other species they had encountered. Instead, they found humans to be unpredictable, aggressive, and absolutely refusing to surrender their independence. The First Galactic War had lasted only 3 years, but it had been brutal. Humanity had been outgunned and outnumbered from the start. What they lacked in technology, they made up for in cunning and sheer determination. Human tactics were unlike anything the aliens had seen before. Where other species fought with honor and followed predictable patterns, humans fought dirty. They used asteroid fields as cover, turned mining equipment into weapons, and refused to follow any rules of engagement the aliens considered civilized. Most shocking of all, humans seemed to have no fear of death when fighting for their freedom. The war had ended not because humanity was defeated, but because the alien coalition realized that conquering Earth would cost them more than they were willing to pay. The peace treaty had been their solution, a way to contain humanity while they prepared for a more decisive victory. But humanity had seen through the deception immediately. While the aliens thought they were clever, establishing monitoring stations and cultural exchange centers throughout human space, humanity had been busy too. Every human colony had been turned into a fortress. Every civilian ship had been designed with military applications in mind. Every school had included mandatory tactical training. The humans had learned from their first encounter with alien technology. Their scientists had reverse-engineered captured enemy ships, improving on designs that had taken the aliens centuries to develop. Human adaptability, which the aliens had initially dismissed as primitive chaos, had become their greatest weapon. "Admiral," Webb said, pulling Sarah from her memories. "The fleet commanders are requesting final orders." Sarah turned to face him. Webb had been just a child during the First Galactic War, but he had grown up in its shadow. Like every human born after the treaty, he had been raised knowing that peace was an illusion. "Signal all fleet commanders," Sarah ordered. "Operation Prometheus begins in 6 hours." Webb nodded and moved to the communication array. Sarah watched him go, then turned back to the holographic display. With a gesture, she changed the view to show the hidden human fleet positions. The green dots multiplied exponentially. What the aliens saw as a scattered, weakened human presence was actually a carefully orchestrated deception. For 37 years, humanity had been playing dead while they prepared for the war they knew was coming. The aliens had grown comfortable, believing their surveillance networks gave them complete knowledge of human capabilities. They had no idea that humanity had developed new technologies in secret facilities hidden throughout space. The most important development had been the breakthrough in faster-than-light communication. While the aliens still relied on relay networks that could be monitored and intercepted, humanity had developed quantum entanglement communication that was completely secure and instantaneous across any distance. This had allowed the human colonies to coordinate in ways the aliens couldn't imagine. What appeared to be isolated human settlements were actually nodes in a vast network of military preparation. Sarah's wrist communicator buzzed. "Admiral, this is Captain Rodriguez aboard the Defiant. All stealth ships are in position around Kepler Station." "Understood, Captain. Remember, we need the Council alive for questioning. This is about sending a message, not mindless slaughter." "Copy that, Admiral." Sarah had to admire the aliens' timing. Their emergency session was perfect cover for what humanity had been planning. Every major alien leader would be gathered in one place, far from their home fleets. They thought they were summoning humanity to answer for their crimes. Instead, they were walking into the largest trap in galactic history. The door to the war room opened, and Director Elena Vasquez entered. As head of human intelligence, Elena had spent decades building the spy network that made Operation Prometheus possible. "The assets are all in place," Elena reported. "Our people have been feeding the alien intelligence networks false information for years. They think they know everything about our capabilities." "Good," Sarah replied. "What about their fleet positions?" "Exactly where we predicted. The Zephyrian Third Fleet is stationed at their home system, believing it's safely out of range of any human threat. The Vortak battle group is patrolling the neutral zone, thinking they're intimidating our trade routes." Sarah smiled grimly. The aliens had made the same mistake countless times throughout history. They had underestimated humanity's reach and determination. "Admiral," Webb called from the communications station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Central Command." "Put it through." The holographic display shifted to show President Martinez, broadcasting from the underground war room beneath the former United Nations building. Behind her, Sarah could see the flags of every human colony and territory. "Admiral Chen, you have authorization to proceed with Operation Prometheus. The entire human race stands behind you. Show them what happens when they mistake our desire for peace as a sign of weakness." "Understood, Madam President. We won't let humanity down." The transmission ended, and Sarah felt the weight of history on her shoulders. In a few hours, the longest deception in human history would come to an end. The aliens had spent 37 years believing they had successfully contained humanity's aggressive nature. They were about to discover how wrong they had been. "Signal the fleet," Sarah ordered. "All ships are to jump to their designated coordinates at 1800 hours, ship time. The age of pretending to be peaceful is over." As her orders spread across human space through quantum entanglement networks, Sarah reflected on the irony of the situation. The aliens had created the Covenant of Stars to prevent another war like the first one. Instead, their deception had given humanity the time and motivation to prepare for a conflict that would make the First Galactic War look like a minor skirmish. Humanity had always known the peace treaty was a sham. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humans could accomplish when they stopped holding back. Humanity always knew the peace treaty was a sham. Continued, the Kepler station hung in space like a massive metal flower, its rotating sections glittering with lights from a dozen different species. Ambassador Zex High of the Zephyrian Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes as he glided through the station's corridors. Today's emergency session would finally put an end to humanity's growing boldness. For years, the Council of Species had tolerated human expansion under the Covenant of Stars. The treaty had been generous, perhaps too generous. Humans had been allowed to maintain their colonies and even establish new ones as long as they submitted to galactic oversight. But recent intelligence suggested they were building military installations in direct violation of the agreement. "The humans grow too confident," muttered Vortesh, the Vortak representative, his scaled hide reflecting the station's artificial lighting. "They forget their place in the galactic order." Zexhai nodded his elongated head. "Today we remind them. The Emergency Powers Clause will allow us to take direct control of human space if they cannot provide satisfactory explanations." Neither alien noticed the human maintenance worker in the corridor behind them, carefully adjusting a ventilation panel. The worker's hands moved with practiced precision, placing a small device inside the ductwork before sealing it back up. Throughout the station, similar scenes were playing out. Human workers, diplomats, and trade representatives were all going about their normal duties. None of the alien security forces paid them any attention. Humans had been part of Kepler Station's operations for decades, and their presence was so routine it had become invisible. That invisibility was about to become the aliens' greatest mistake. In the Central Council chamber, representatives from 14 species took their assigned seats. The humans were notably absent, though their empty chairs had been prepared as usual. The chamber's dome showed the stars wheeling slowly overhead, a reminder of the vast territories each species controlled. "The session will come to order," announced Prime Chancellor Korvax, the ancient leader of the hegemony species. His 4 eyes surveyed the assembly with cold calculation. "We gather today to address the growing human problem." High Counselor Veltar of the Syndicate leaned forward. "Our intelligence networks have detected massive construction projects in human space. Orbital platforms, industrial complexes, shipyards far exceeding any civilian needs. Furthermore," added Zexhai, "human ships have been detected in restricted areas throughout the galaxy. They claim to be conducting trade or research, but their activities suggest military reconnaissance." The accusations continued for nearly an hour. Each species presented evidence of human activities that violated either the letter or spirit of the peace treaty. Mining operations in contested systems, research facilities studying banned technologies, training exercises that looked suspiciously like military preparations. "The pattern is clear," Korvax concluded. "Humanity is preparing for war. The question is whether we allow them to choose the time and place, or whether we act now to prevent another galactic conflict." "I propose immediate action," declared War Marshal Thexnor of the Dominion. "We have overwhelming superiority in numbers and technology. A swift strike against human leadership will end this threat before it can fully develop." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The assembled aliens had grown comfortable in their power over the past 37 years. They had convinced themselves that the First Galactic War had been an aberration, that humanity had simply gotten lucky through desperation and surprise. "Then it is decided," Korvax said. "We invoke emergency powers under the Covenant of Stars. All human territories are hereby placed under direct galactic oversight. Their military forces will be disbanded and their leaders will—" The lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on a moment later, casting the chamber in an eerie red glow. The alien representatives looked around in confusion, their various sensory organs trying to identify the threat. "Technical malfunction," someone suggested. "The humans have always been poor at maintaining their equipment." Then the holographic displays around the chamber came to life. Instead of showing star charts and treaty documents, they now displayed a single human face. Admiral Sarah Chen looked directly at the assembled alien leadership with cold determination. "Greetings, members of the Council of Species," she said. "I apologize for missing your emergency session, but I've been busy preparing for a different kind of emergency." Panic began to spread through the chamber. Korvax slammed his fist on his podium. "Security! Cut the transmission and arrest any humans on this station." Sarah continued speaking as if she hadn't heard the interruption. For 37 years, you've believed you were controlling humanity through your peace treaty. You thought you were clever, surrounding our space with monitoring stations and placing restrictions on our development. You believed you had successfully leashed the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Security teams were already rushing through the station's corridors, but they found the passages blocked by force fields that responded to no override commands. The human maintenance workers had vanished, but the devices they had planted were now active throughout the station. The truth is, we saw through your deception from the very beginning, Sarah continued. We knew the peace treaty was nothing more than a delay tactic while you prepared to finish what you started. So we decided to prepare as well. On the displays, the view shifted to show the space around Kepler Station. Where there had been empty void moments before, human ships were now decloaking. Hundreds of them, surrounding the station in a perfect sphere. Their hulls were unlike anything the aliens had seen before, sleek angular designs that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Impossible, whispered Veltar. Our sensors showed nothing. Our deep space monitors would have detected any fleet movement. Sarah smiled grimly. Your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. Did you really think we spent 37 years sitting idle? Every monitoring station you built, every spy network you established, every intelligence asset you planted. We knew about all of it, and we fed you exactly the information we wanted you to have. The camera pulled back to show Sarah standing in what was clearly a military command center. Behind her, dozens of human officers worked at control stations, coordinating what appeared to be a massive operation. While you were congratulating yourselves on containing humanity, Sarah said, we were preparing for this day. Every human colony became a fortress. Every civilian ship was designed with military applications. Every child born after the treaty was raised, knowing that war was inevitable. War Marshal Thexnor struggled to his feet. You cannot threaten the Council of Species. We have fleets throughout the galaxy. Even if you've managed to surprise us here, you cannot match our combined military might. Can't we? Sarah asked. The displays shifted again, this time showing star maps throughout known space. Red indicators marked the locations of major alien military installations and fleet concentrations. As the Council watched in growing horror, green indicators began appearing near each red one. Your third fleet at Zephyr Prime is currently under attack by our Pacific Strike Group, Sarah announced matter-of-factly. The Vortak battle group in the neutral zone is engaging our Atlantic fleet. The Syndicate Defense Force at their home system is discovering that their impregnable planetary shields don't work quite as well as they thought. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives were screaming orders to their home fleets, demanding impossible explanations from their intelligence services, and making increasingly desperate threats against the humans. Sarah waited for the noise to die down before continuing. You see, while you were playing your games of diplomacy and intimidation, humanity was learning. We studied your technologies, your tactics, your weaknesses. We spent 4 decades becoming the enemy you never imagined we could be. This is madness, Korvax shouted. You cannot win a war against the entire galaxy. We outnumber you 1,000 to 1. Numbers, Sarah mused. You've always been obsessed with numbers. Bigger fleets, more planets, larger populations. But you never understood what makes humans dangerous. It's not our numbers. It's not even our technology, though I think you'll find we've made some impressive improvements in that area. The displays showed footage from the ongoing battles. Human ships moved with an aggressiveness and unpredictability that clearly caught the alien fleets off guard. Where alien vessels followed standard tactical formations, human ships broke apart and reformed in patterns that defied conventional military wisdom. What makes humans dangerous, Sarah continued, is that we don't fight the way you expect. You follow rules, traditions, honored tactics, passed down through generations. We make new rules every time we fight. You seek to minimize casualties and preserve assets. We're willing to sacrifice everything to achieve victory. As if to emphasize her point, the footage showed a human destroyer ramming directly into a much larger alien battleship, its crew apparently willing to die to take out a high-value target. But most importantly, Sarah said, her voice growing cold, humans have something you've never truly understood. When you fight us, you're not just fighting our military, you're fighting every human civilian who will pick up a weapon to defend their home. You're fighting parents who will die before they let their children be enslaved. You're fighting a species that would rather burn the galaxy to ash than live under alien rule. The chamber had grown quiet. The assembled representatives were beginning to realize that their carefully laid plans were crumbling around them. So here's what's going to happen, Sarah said. The Covenant of Stars is officially null and void as of this moment. Human territories are no longer subject to galactic oversight. Any alien military forces found in human space will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. You're declaring war on the entire galaxy? Veltar asked weakly. No, Sarah replied. We're declaring independence. The war was your idea. We're just finally fighting it on our terms. Humanity always knew the peace treaty was a sham. Conclusion. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Kepler Station. Captain Maya Singh stood on the bridge of the UHS Indomitable, watching through the main viewport as the last Zephyrian dreadnought exploded in silent fire. Around her, the debris field that had once been the invincible Fourth Fleet drifted like metal snow against the stars. That's the last of them, Captain, reported Lieutenant Davis from the tactical station. The system is secure. Maya nodded grimly. Another alien stronghold had fallen to human forces, but the victory felt hollow. This war wasn't about conquest or glory, it was about survival, and survival was always a messy business. Signal the fleet, she ordered. Begin rescue operations for any survivors, both human and alien. Set up a field hospital on the third moon. This had become standard procedure for human forces. Unlike the aliens who typically left no survivors after their victories, humans still maintained their peculiar habit of trying to save lives whenever possible. It was a trait that many alien commanders found incomprehensible, even as they benefited from it. On her personal communicator, Maya received an encrypted message from Admiral Chen. The quantum entanglement network had proven its worth over the past months, allowing human forces to coordinate across vast distances while keeping the aliens completely in the dark about their strategies. Captain Singh, excellent work on Zephyr 7. Return to Earth when the system is secure. We need experienced commanders for the next phase. Maya frowned at that last part. The next phase? They had already achieved everything the original Operation Prometheus had planned. Human space was free from alien oversight, and the combined alien fleets had suffered devastating losses in their attempts to reassert control. 2 weeks later, Maya found herself back in the underground command center beneath Geneva, standing before the same holographic display where this all had begun. But the map looked very different now. Where once red had dominated the display, showing overwhelming alien superiority, now there were patches of gray throughout known space. Neutral systems, Admiral Chen explained when Maya asked about the color coding. Planets and colonies that have declared independence from their former alien overlords. It seems our little rebellion has inspired others. Elena Vasquez, still serving as Director of Human Intelligence, pulled up detailed reports on her tablet. The Rigelian colonies have expelled their syndicate governors. The mining worlds in the Outer Rim have formed their own federation. Even some core systems are questioning their allegiance to the traditional powers. Maya studied the reports with growing amazement. They're following our example? Not exactly following, Chen corrected. But our success has shown them that the established order isn't as unbreakable as they thought. When humans proved that a lesser species could successfully challenge galactic authority, it gave hope to everyone who had been oppressed. This was something the alien leadership had never considered. Their rigid hierarchy had been based on the assumption that some species were naturally superior to others. The idea that a primitive race like humanity could not only resist, but actively defeat advanced alien civilizations had shattered that worldview. "What's the current situation with the main alien powers?" Maya asked. Director Vasquez brought up another display. "The Zephyrian Empire is in complete chaos. 3 different factions are claiming leadership, and their remaining fleets are fighting each other instead of us. The Vortak hegemony has recalled all their forces to defend their home territory. The Syndicate is trying to negotiate a separate peace. And the others? Most of the smaller species have already withdrawn from the conflict. They're more concerned about internal rebellions than continuing a war they can't win." Maya felt a mix of satisfaction and unease. They had achieved their primary objective. Humanity was free. But the galaxy was descending into chaos. That hadn't been the plan. Admiral Chen seemed to read her thoughts. "War is never clean, Captain. We knew there would be consequences beyond just securing our own freedom." "So, what's this next phase you mentioned?" Chen gestured to the holographic display, which now showed not just military positions, but also refugee movements, trade route disruptions, and humanitarian crises throughout known space. "The galaxy is breaking apart, Captain. The old order is collapsing, but nothing is taking its place. Billions of sentient beings are caught in the middle. And we're responsible for that?" "Partially," Chen admitted, "but we're also the only ones in a position to do something about it." The doors to the command center opened, and President Martinez entered, followed by a delegation that included both human and alien representatives. Maya recognized some of the aliens from intelligence briefings, former enemies who had apparently decided that cooperation was preferable to continued conflict. "Captain Singh," President Martinez said, "I'd like you to meet Ambassador Kethvon of the reformed Zephyrian Republic and Councillor Drixtall, representing the Free Worlds Alliance." The aliens looked uncomfortable in their surroundings, but they maintained diplomatic composure as they approached. Ambassador Kethvon spoke first, his translated words carrying a formal tone despite the electronic distortion. "Captain Singh, we have heard of your conduct during the recent conflicts. Your forces showed mercy to our personnel even during active combat. This is not something we expected from a warrior species." Maya glanced at Admiral Chen, who nodded encouragingly. "We've always believed that being strong doesn't mean being cruel," Maya replied carefully. "Our fight was never about destroying your people. It was about protecting ours." Councillor Drixtall stepped forward. "This is why we have requested this meeting. The galaxy burns while we speak. Trade has collapsed, colonies are starving, and refugee populations grow larger each day. The old Council of Species is gone, but something must take its place." President Martinez moved to the central display. "What they're proposing, Captain, is a new form of galactic government, not based on dominance or species hierarchy, but on mutual cooperation and shared governance." "The Galactic Federation," Admiral Chen added. "Equal representation for all member species, with strict protections for planetary and system autonomy. No more forced membership or oversight of sovereign territories." Maya studied the faces around her, human and alien alike. "And you want human participation in this?" "We need human participation," Ambassador Kethvon said bluntly. "Your species has proven capable of defeating any military force in the galaxy. Without human involvement, any new government would be seen as weak and ineffective." "But more than that," Councillor Drixtall added, "humans have demonstrated something we had forgotten was possible. You fight fiercely when threatened, but you show mercy to the defeated. You value independence but still help others in need. These are the qualities needed to build a lasting peace." Maya looked around the command center, remembering the months of preparation and conflict that had brought them to this point. The war had been necessary to secure human freedom, but perhaps there was an opportunity to create something better from the ashes of the old order. "What guarantees would there be?" she asked. "How do we know this won't just become another attempt to control humanity?" President Martinez smiled. "That's the beauty of the proposal, Captain. The Federation would be based on voluntary membership. Any species or system could withdraw at any time, for any reason, and the military command structure would be jointly operated, with humans holding key leadership positions." Admiral Chen brought up new displays showing proposed Federation territories, trade routes, and defensive arrangements. "Think of it as the peace treaty we should have had 40 years ago, based on genuine equality instead of forced submission." Maya studied the plans carefully. The proposed federation would be larger and more diverse than any government in galactic history, but it would also be more flexible and responsive to member needs. "There's one condition," Maya said finally. "Humanity maintains the right to defend itself and its allies by any means necessary. If anyone tries to use this federation as cover for another attempt at dominance, they'll discover that we haven't forgotten how to fight." Ambassador Kethvan's head bobbed in what Maya recognized as agreement. "We would expect nothing less. A galaxy without the threat of human resistance would quickly return to the old ways of oppression." As the meeting broke up and the various delegates returned to their preparations, Maya found herself alone with Admiral Chen in the command center. "Did we really win, Admiral?" she asked. "Or did we just trade one set of problems for another?" Chen considered the question seriously. "We won the right to determine our own future, Captain. Everything else, the Federation, the new galactic order, even whether peace actually lasts, that's up to all of us to build together." Maya nodded, understanding. The war had been the easy part, in a way. Fighting an enemy was simple compared to building something better to replace what you had destroyed. "When do we start?" she asked. "Tomorrow," Chen replied. "The first Federation Constitutional Convention begins on Luna Colony. Representatives from 43 different species, all trying to write the laws for a government that's never been attempted before." Maya smiled for the first time in months. "Sounds like the kind of impossible task humans are good at." As she left the command center and headed for the surface, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this point. They had started as a species trapped by a false peace treaty, surrounded by enemies who planned their eventual destruction. Through careful preparation, tactical brilliance, and sheer stubborn determination, they had not only freed themselves, but had become the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. The old Council of Species had been right about one thing: humanity was dangerous. But they had been wrong about what made them dangerous. It wasn't their weapons or their tactics or their willingness to fight. It was their refusal to accept that things had to remain the way they were, combined with their determination to make them better. The galaxy would never be the same. And for the first time since the original peace treaty had been signed, that felt like a good thing.